This is officially our second take on Protection Paladin, and it was needed. Word of Glory changed and Bastion of Glory is now shining light. Legendaries are abound, and although some nerfed, they still dictate and create certain builds and different performances that make the spec a blast to play. So throw those Avenger shields like nothing before with the Shadowlands Prot Paladin, the real Captain of Azeroth. Catch the captain on our twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline, where we play and stream 5 days a week. We do raids and dungeons with you guys whenever we can. Drop a follow and check all the gameplay that goes into a video live. Starting with a short reminder, we went over everything that was unpruned in our previous Prot Paladin video, so check it out once you are done here. The most important thing that changed, still worth mentioning, is Holy Power. Now, Shield of the Righteous costs 3 Holy Power to cast. Same thing goes with Word of Glory, which replaces Light of the Protector. As a bonus to tie these two neatly together, you now have a redesigned passive, Shining Light. After being changed a few times on the beta, now has a more straightforward and balanced iteration and interaction. Both of them. After being changed a few times on the beta, now it has a more straightforward and balanced interaction. After every 5 Shields of the Righteous, your Word of Glory is free. It retains its bonus healing once your HP is low enough, but does not apply to allies unless you talent into it. Aside from the interaction of these two, not much else changed from our last Protection Paladin video. So let's check the covenants. Kyrians give divine toll. Enough said. What? You don't want to be Captain Azeroth and shield your way to victory? Well, that's too bad, because Captain Azeroth is a true hero, a man of the people. Anywho, Divine Toll essentially fires an Avenger's shield at all enemies up to 5 around you. They all have the same properties of silencing and bouncing and generating holy power. Aside all the silences and the damages, it's an instant 5 holy power generator and a pretty good dungeon mob control tool. It's just beautiful. Maldraxxus and the Necrolords come with the Vanquisher's Hammer. You throw a hammer at the target for some damage with a 30-second cooldown and makes your next Word of Glory trigger a Shield of the Righteous anyway. 30 seconds is usually the time it takes more or less for you to generate a free Word of Glory. If we're going to talk about maximum efficiency, this essentially makes every 6th Shield of the Righteous free, if we're talking max efficiency. Otherwise, there might be times when you are forced to use Word of Glory regardless of your Shining Light stacks, so spending 3 Holy Powers can still net you a Shield of the Righteous. That's pretty good. The downside is that it costs a Holy Power to cast, so you could say your 6th Shield of the Righteous costs 1 Holy Power, which is It does, however, have interesting interactions with conduits and legendaries for specific mechanics like prolonging Ardent Defender, but more on conduits later. Moving on to the Night Fae, you have Blessings of the Seasons. This has also been changed a bit over the course of the beta. Its current interaction seems a bit better in my opinion and can offer a fair amount of uses. This is essentially a 4-part spell with a 45-second cooldown in between its parts. The blessings rotate as seasons do. Blessing of Spring lasts like all others, 30 seconds, and increases the healing done and received by an ally by 10%. This is good for you as well. It's actually really good to pair it up with a Word of Glory. If you have enough haste, you could fit in 2 Words of Glory in its duration, or use it for a predominantly high magic intake fight and spam Words of Glory. Or maybe you are off-tanking, and you can spam it on your off-tank. Or a main tank, because you are off-tanking. Who wrote this damn script? Once you activate Blessings of Spring, the next one that you can get is Summer. This buffs the target with a 40% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy damage. I can see this working especially great with Red Paladins, who have been getting more and more holy damage amplifiers. Obviously, Discipline and Holy Priests and Paladins in general will benefit from this. After Summer comes Autumn. and this is the ineffable truth effect. Cooldowns will recover 30% faster on the affected target. Lastly, Blessing of Winter will buff the target to deal extra frost damage and reduce the move speed by 3% and attack speed by 2% of affected target, stacking up to 10 times. This can turn into a nice kite or damage reduction tool if you can reduce the amount of attacks coming to your face. Just 30 seconds though. This seems to be the kind of buff you rotate on group members to make the most out of it situationally. If not, just use it on cooldown, I guess. The effects are so nice, but the fact that you cannot choose which one to use at any given time takes away some agency, and you are left with getting what you get, and if that's not the right one for the moment, tough. Lastly, we get to Venthyr. Boy oh boy. Ashen Hollow has been buffed. It deals quite a bit of damage now, and also a little bit of healing too, spread if multiple targets are present inside its effect, and also enables Hammer of Wrath while you're inside it for 100% increased damage. It lasts for 30 seconds. The main issue still remains, it's a very long cooldown. 4 minutes looks like the devs want it to be a raid cooldown, since in dungeons you cannot really plan around 4-minute cooldowns, you either use them or don't. Especially AoE, since AoE is capped now. Hammer of Wrath being empowered looks like it was meant for bosses, and the zone being large as fuck seems to want to compensate for possible movement if you need to reposition the boss. I suppose it's fine, but apart from damage and healing to hurt targets, it provides you with an alternate source of holy power generation, which, between Judgment, Avenger's Shield, and Hammer of the Righteous, you shouldn't really be starved for generators if you're playing the spec right. A few talents have changed since our last video, so let's do a rundown. First Avenger remained the same in that 100% of the damage you do turns into an Absorb Shield on you with your Avenger Shield. Performs pretty well in dungeons, and with the Legendaries and the Kyrian Covenant you can have a fair amount of healing from it. Moment of Glory changed again, and now it resets the cooldown on Avenger's Shield and makes your next 3 casts of it have no cooldown and deal 20% more damage. In terms of utility, not having a cooldown translates into holy power generation and silences. The damage outperforms Judgment when hitting 3 or more targets, so that's a bit It's good, but using it as a priority over Judgment makes you lose the 25% holy damage also, so likely you will still fit in a Judgment in between shield casts. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown and a fun ability to use. Kind of more testing needed though. Divine Purpose remained the same as when we looked at it last. Holy Power abilities having a 15% chance to make the next spender free and deal 20% more damage or healing. Same with Holy Avenger as well, being the old iteration where Holy Power generation is tripled. Since Shield of the Righteous is already 3 Holy Power in terms of cost, means you would be overcapping its duration during Holy Avenger, hence the main benefit of this would probably be to fit in Wards of Glory as well. That's interesting, a cooldown that can give you 100% uptime on your active mitigation and help you and the group with a lot of heals. Will you be a healer? The dream is complete. From a personal use only, this could be the strongest defensive cooldown maybe any tank can have. I don't know if there will be a situation where for 20 seconds casting an empowered Word of Glory every 3rd global or so on yourself is useful, but if there is, then banzai, since an empowered Word of Glory can crit for 2/3 of your HP, even full HP if you are really low. Seraphim has been changed to offer percentage increases to your secondary stats as opposed to the flat increases we had before. This adds an interesting dynamic to the rotation, seeing as it costs a Shield of the Righteous to cast. There can be situations where with enough haste you can still maintain high uptime on Shield to afford to cast Seraphim. What will come down to is value, and that remains to be seen when we gain access to the raid properly and the raid tier is in full force. Seraphim can potentially work really well with Sanctified Wrath paired with Crusader's Judgment. The extra holy power generation is crazy, and with these talent combinations, your wings will make you as invulnerable as a tank can be without an immunity and without it being broken, I suppose. 100% uptime on your active mitigation, double holy power generation on a 2-charge Judgment, decent stat inflation from Seraphim, plus all the lovely goodness of wings to begin with. God damn it, I am so happy I chose Paladin as a main. Shit's lit as fuck! We just had some nerfs on some of the legendaries because they were all performing pretty well, but it seems like it's okay now. The Ardent Protector's Sanctum can be a great progression legendary. This will buff your Ardent Defender to reduce incoming damage by 10% extra and apply to your nearest ally as well, usually the off tank. So basically you can pop this for your body and arms if you cannot take the heat yet with a taunt. Man, this is cool. Obviously it can be used in dungeons as well with some planning and management, but your defensive applying to another person? Yes, please. The recently nerfed Bulwark of Righteous Fury makes each target hit by Avenger's Shield increase the damage of your next Shield of the Righteous by 30%. It's clearly a good dungeon legendary to have for some pretty big AoE deeps. Paired up with some of these holy power batteries you've seen in the talents and boom! DPS tank confirmed! Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil will give your Avenger's Shield a 50% chance to have its cooldown instantly reset when used. This kind of makes Moment of Glory useless in the grand scheme of things, since you will definitely pair this up with the first Avenger talent. This will turn into a lot of overall HPS and be a legit defensive option. Reign of the Endless Kings is maybe another good one to have during progression or when pushing very high content to act as an almost cheat death. When you dip below 20% health, you get Guardian of Ancient Kings for 4 seconds with an internal 45-second cooldown. If you do dip below 20% HP every minute or so, this could be of good value. It would also mean you are either pushing extremely punishing content, in which case maybe a legendary that can prevent you reaching that point might be better, or you are playing wrong, since you shouldn't dip so low that often in a normal environment. You do have tools to compensate a big hit, but I feel that this mechanic is best served for tanks like DKs and Demon Hunters. Would have liked something to prevent me from dipping. What are you gonna do? When it comes to Soulbinds, which we didn't have a chance to test last time, it's all about what combinations of passives and conduits you want to have unlocked. Since Soulbinds are essentially secondary talent trees, whatever unlock path you choose will determine your strengths. As an example, Pelagos from the Kyrians will have 2 really good traits to aim for, which are not really to aim because you get them anyway. Lego of the Past is the first one you unlock. Using different consecutive abilities gives you a stacking versatility buff, and this is not hard to do as Prot, since most of your generators have cooldowns and you would need to kind of go through all of them eventually anyway. And with Combat Meditation you get a boost to your mastery, one that can have a pretty high uptime. All the other options buff Phyla Serenity, an additional heal, and a pretty good utility to have. Maldraxxus has an assortment of good tank buffs to HP and emergency fears, but what really stands out for a pleb like me is the Marrow Gemstone from the Bonesmith Soulbind. This will give you a 20% crit chance buff after every 10 crits you manage to do. Have you met Avenging Wrath? 100% crit chance maybe? What diminishing returns on crit? Get out of here. There are diminishing returns on crit. Sadness installs. Ardenwold comes with some potential strong choices as well. Dreamweaver can be an interesting soulbind for protection. First of all, Social Butterfly is a versatility buff that jumps from you to your allies and back again, and can stack with other people that have it for some decent versatility amps. Pod Tender is a cheat death mechanic that will instead heal you to 30% HP over 10 seconds when you would normally have died. Paladin might be the only tank that can maybe cheese this mechanic and pop Divine Shield. That way, the downside of dying if you take too much damage during the duration of the hot is negated, and if you even take Final Stand as a talent, then you keep all your aggro as well. Nice! If you go Venthyr, you can have some nice haste boosts from Nadia in Thrillseeker. This procs a 20% haste buff every now and again as you stay in combat. Or simply go with General Draven for some tanky goodness in Hold Your Ground. This gives you 10% stamina and 4% healing done when standing still for longer than 4 seconds. If you have to boogie out, you retain the buff for 4 more seconds, which is more than enough to ride your pony into the sunset and escape furious melee hits from enemies. The two potency conduits you'll be interested in as protection are the only potency conduits anyway. Who wrote this script? Again? Punish the Guilty has just been nerfed, yet still will look to deal decent damage by buffing your Shield of the Righteous by 50% on targets affected by Judgment. Vengeful Shock works similarly, where Avenger's Shield debuffs enemies to take 15% extra holy damage from you. The other conduits are class specific, but your Soulbind will most likely unlock at least one Endurance or one Finesse conduit. Endurance conduits are like shielding words, where Word of Glory grants a shield equal to 15% of the healing it did. Playing Hand of the Protector and this baby will make your heals stronger on your entire group. Protection gets specific Endurance conduits as well. Resolute Defender makes Shield of the Righteous extend the duration of Ardent Defender by 25% of its base duration, I assume. I mentioned this when we talked about the Necrolord's Covenant. With enough haste and holy power generation, I had this up for about a minute or so. Doesn't happen often, but it can be strong. Royal Decree reduces the cooldown of Guardian of Ancient Kings by 15 seconds and makes your next Word of Glory free. Combine this with Righteous Protector as a talent and maybe even the Legendary, and you might see some Guardian of Ancient Kings shenanigans going around. All in all, protection is looking pretty good as a tank. No spec will ever be 100% finished if we're really going to be technical, but so far it feels fun to play. I finally like the talent tree where I have options on all of the major rows. I am constantly in doubt if Blizzard actually did a good job at balancing the tree, because it feels weird to have more than one or two variations be viable. There is still the issue of Blessing of Seasons not being controlled more, but in a raid setting or a party of people diverse enough, a swift judgment call on who to use what buff on can make a big difference. I will recommend you stay up to date with the Hammer of Wrath Discord for any new things, maybe soon to be builds coming up, since the boys and gals there do a pretty good job on keeping everyone informed with the most recent changes. And of course, a special shout out to our patrons. You can see them on the screen, somewhere here or somewhere there, everywhere, because they're so cool in supporting our content, channels, streams, everything that we do because you guys love it so much, and it's also a passion for us, and it does help, and it's actually humbling when you guys are supporting us in the way that you do. And you, dear viewer, if you want to support us a little bit more and you want to see what this is all about, you can check the link down below to our Patreon page. There's a merch link as well and some goodies that might appeal to you. Thank you for watching the video, stay awesome, and we'll see you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.